Close your eyes now, my sweet friend. Let the weight of the day melt gently from your shoulders as you sink deeper into the softness of your pillow, feeling the cool cotton brush against your cheek like the quietest cloud. Tonight, I'm going to whisper you the entire story of Up. Every tiny moment, every hidden tear, every burst of color and hope, exactly the way it was meant to drift into a sleepy heart. No rush, no loud voices, just my voice, soft as the first raindrop on a window pane, and the gentle sounds of rain outside an old house, wind brushing through thousands of balloons, pages turning slowly in a worn adventure book. You already know this film touches something deep inside, but tonight, we're going to live inside every second of it together, so every worry you carried to bed can float away on those same balloons. Imagine you're curled up inside a little attic room, a single lamp glowing golden, dust motes floating like tiny stars, and I'm sitting right beside you on the edge of the bed, speaking so close that my breath tickles your ear in the softest way. Feel the warmth of the blanket I'm tucking around you, the faint scent of vanilla and old paper, the distant patter of rain on the roof that says it's safe to let go. This is a bedtime story for grown-ups who still believe in adventure, for anyone who has ever felt stuck, for anyone who has ever loved so deeply that losing that love left a quiet ache shaped like a house. Tonight, Carl Fredricksen is going to teach us how to fly again, and Russell is going to remind us that the people who show up at our door might just be the answer to a prayer we forgot we made. Trivia whispers in first. Did you know that Pete Docter started writing this story because he kept imagining an old man who just wanted to be left alone, yet the universe kept sending him noisy little boys and talking dogs? He said in interviews that the first 4 minutes, the wordless love story of Carl and Ellie, made grown animators cry in the screening room every single time they watched it, even after hundreds of viewings. And here's another gentle secret. The filmmakers placed exactly 10 296 balloons on Carl's house in the wide shot, each one hand-colored slightly differently, so no two are exactly alike. Just like every dream you and I carry is unique. Let me ask you something before we begin, just between us and the rain. Have you ever held on to an old promise so tightly that it started to feel heavier than love? Have you ever looked at an empty chair across the breakfast table and felt the whole room tilt? Breathe in slowly and let that breath carry the answer back into the night. It's okay if tears come. They're only tiny balloons of their own, and tonight we're going to learn how to let them lift us. Feel the air around us growing lighter now, almost fizzy, as if helium itself is seeping into the room. Somewhere above us, a little blue house with chimney and weather vane is creaking, getting ready to rise. The rain keeps its steady lullaby, soft as brushed cymbals, and every drop is telling you it's time. Time to follow an old man with square glasses and a grape soda badge. Time to meet a round-faced wilderness explorer who still believes helping old people cross the street might earn him the last badge he needs. Time to discover that Paradise Falls is real, and that getting there sometimes means letting go of everything except the people who need you right now. Rest your head a little heavier, let your shoulders drop another inch, and allow my voice to become the only thing in the world that still needs your attention. Every word will be slow, every pause a place for your heartbeat to settle. We're not in a hurry. The balloons can wait. The house can wait. Even the great big colorful bird can wait. Right now, the only adventure is the gentle rise and fall of your chest, matching the rhythm of my whispering. One last tiny trivia before we open the first page of Carl and Ellie's adventure book. The Ellie badge, that grape soda pin with the bottle cap, was inspired by real bottle caps Pixar artists collected from their childhoods. Little circles of memory they carried in their pockets the way we carry photographs or song lyrics or the smell of someone's hair. Tonight, that badge is going to become the softest goodnight kiss on your heart. Are you ready, love? Can you feel the first balloon tugging gently at the chimney? Not pulling hard, just reminding the house that it was born to fly. Breathe in, breathe out, and when you're completely ready, we'll turn the first page together and watch a little boy and a little girl in an old newsreel theater fall in love with the same daring explorer, never guessing that one day they would become the greatest adventure of all. Shh, here we go. The theater lights are dim and golden, the kind of dusty gold that makes everything feel like a dream you don't want to wake from. And there, on the flickering screen, is Charles Muntz, tall and dashing in his leather flying cap, standing beside his magnificent airship Spirit of Adventure, while a crowd cheers and cameras flash. Little Carl Fredricksen sits in the front row, his eyes enormous behind thick square glasses, mouth slightly open, completely lost in wonder. Beside him, in the next seat, a wild-haired girl in a knitted cap is already standing on her chair, one fist raised to the sky, shouting along with the newsreel, "Adventure is out there!" Her name is Ellie, and the moment she jumps down and lands with both feet on the sidewalk outside, dragging Carl by the hand, you can almost smell the popcorn still warm on their fingers and the faint metallic scent of the projector cooling behind them. She pulls him all the way to an abandoned house on a hill, the one with cracked windows and peeling paint that looks like it's been waiting for two children to bring it back to life. Inside, sunlight pours through broken boards and long slanted beams, dust dancing like slow-motion fireflies. Ellie makes Carl swear the explorer's oath, her voice fierce and bright, and she pins the grape soda bottle cap badge to his shirt with such tenderness you can feel the tiny prick of the pin and the cool circle of metal settling against his heart. She shows him her adventure book, thick with pasted photographs and crayon drawings of Paradise Falls, a red X marking the spot where she is going to take her house one day and live right beside the waterfall. Carl can barely speak. He only nods, cheeks pink, already in love with her dreams more than he has ever loved anything in his whole 8 years of life. Have you ever met someone who made the whole world suddenly feel bigger and brighter, like someone turned the color knob all the way up? Hold that feeling for a moment, let it settle warm in your chest, and breathe out slowly. Years drift by like pages turning themselves. We watch them grow up in the gentlest montage ever put on screen, set to Michael Giacchino's piano waltz, Married Life, that feels exactly like warm arms wrapping around you. Carl sells balloons at the zoo, each one a tiny bright planet he hands to children with the same shy smile. Ellie works beside him, hair now in a practical bun, laughing as she ties ribbons. They marry in a little church filled with yellow flowers. They buy the abandoned house and paint it soft blue, hanging a swing on the porch. They lie on picnic blankets under clouds, shaping them into airships and baby bottles, dreaming of the children they will have and the places they will go. You can almost taste the lemonade they sip, feel the grass tickling the backs of their knees, hear the distant call of zoo animals mixing with their quiet plans. But life, soft as it is, also has edges. The clouds turn gray one day. A doctor's office, a flat line on a screen, Ellie in a hospital bed with her head wrapped, tears sliding silently while Carl holds her hand so tightly his knuckles go white. The baby they wanted never comes. The adventure book stays half-finished, its blank pages waiting. Ellie grows weaker, her smile still brave but thinner. And one afternoon in the hospital, she presses the book into Carl's hands one last time, eyes shining with the same fierce light she had as a child, then quietly slips away. The room is silent except for the soft beep of machines being turned off and the sound of Carl's heart breaking so completely you can almost hear the crack. Trivia whisper. The animators studied real grief for months. They filmed themselves crying in mirrors to get the exact way shoulders shake when someone is trying so hard not to make a sound. They said the hardest scene to animate was Carl straightening his grape soda tie in the mirror at the funeral, because the reflection had to look lonelier than the man himself. Now Carl is old, 78 years old, living alone in the little blue house surrounded by construction cranes and half-built skyscrapers that loom like giants ready to swallow his memories. Every morning he makes 2 cups of coffee out of habit, then pours one down the sink with trembling fingers. The house creaks around him like an old friend who doesn't know how to say goodbye. His days are quiet routines: oatmeal, newspaper, adjusting photographs on the mantle that never quite sit straight anymore. The adventure book sits on the shelf, spine cracked, pages untouched for decades. Have you ever walked through rooms that feel too big because someone is missing? Have you ever caught yourself setting the table for 2 and then stood there, staring at the empty chair, unsure what to do with your hands? Let that ache rise gently, acknowledge it like an old neighbor you nod to on the street, and then let the rain outside wash it clean for tonight. One morning, a construction truck backs too close to the mailbox. Carl, protective of the last piece of Ellie that still stands outside, swings his cane with the tennis ball feet and accidentally cracks the truck's mirror. The company threatens to evict him to a retirement home. The nice young man in the pastel uniform arrives with brochures full of smiling seniors playing shuffleboard, and Carl signs the papers just to make them go away, but inside he is screaming. That night he sits in his armchair, the one with the worn patch where Ellie used to rest her head, and stares at the adventure book. His fingers trace the faded words, "Things I'm going to do," written in her 8-year-old handwriting. He looks at the thousands of colorful balloons he still keeps in the corner from his old zoo job, and something inside him, something small and stubborn and still 8 years old, decides, no, not yet. The next morning, a chubby wilderness explorer named Russell rings the doorbell. He is round-faced and earnest, wearing a yellow sash covered in badges, carrying a backpack almost as big as he is. He needs only the Assisting the Elderly badge to become a senior wilderness explorer, and he has been sent door to door. Carl tries to shoo him away, but Russell is persistent in the gentlest way, offering to help with chores, asking if Carl needs anything carried or any squirrels relocated. Carl, desperate for quiet, tricks him into hunting a non-existent snipe under the porch so he can finish his plan in peace. That night, while the city sleeps, Carl works by lamplight. You can almost hear the soft rustle of plastic as he attaches hose after hose to the fireplace, the quiet pop of each balloon filling with helium, the creak of floorboards under his slow steps. 10,296 balloons, just like the animators counted, each one a tiny heartbeat of color. He ties them carefully to the chimney, to the roof beams, to every corner of the house that once held laughter and lemonade and 2 people cloud-watching. Dawn comes pale and pink, and Carl stands on the porch in his tweed jacket and bow tie, cane in one hand, gripping the garden hose like a steering line. Construction workers arrive to move him out. They knock. He smiles politely, says you'll have to. "Excuse me, I have an appointment." And then he cuts the strings holding the house down. The house lifts. Slowly at first, shingles creaking, chimney tilting, then faster, balloons blooming into a great multicolored bouquet against the sky. The workers scream and scatter as the little blue house rises above the city, tugging free of power lines, floating higher and higher until the construction site becomes a toy set far below. Carl stands at the open front door, wind whipping his few strands of gray hair, eyes wide behind square glasses, a small, astonished smile breaking across his face for the first time in years. The adventure book rests on the table inside, open to the page marked Paradise Falls. He is going. He is finally keeping the promise. Have you ever felt a moment when something inside you suddenly said, enough? When you decided to do the impossible thing just because staying still hurt more. Let that courage settle over you now like the softest blanket. Breathe it in. Carl is flying for both of you. And somewhere far below, Russell, still hunting the imaginary snipe, looks up just in time to see the house drifting overhead. He runs after it, waving his arms, shouting, "Mr. Fredrickson, wait!" Too late. Or maybe, just maybe, exactly on time. The little blue house floats higher than any bird has ever flown without wings, drifting through cotton candy clouds that leave the faintest cool mist on Carl's cheeks as he stands in the open doorway, one hand gripping the hose like a ship's wheel, the other pressed flat against his chest, where the grape soda pin still lives after 70 years. The city is now only a patchwork quilt of tiny streets and toy cars far below, and the silence up here is so complete you can almost hear the balloons breathing. Each balloon has its own soft, rubbery scent, faint and sweet like childhood birthdays, and the strings hum the gentlest lullaby when the wind strokes them. Carl closes the door at last, the familiar click of the latch sounding exactly like every evening he and Ellie ever came home together, and for a moment he has to lean against the wall because the memory is so strong it makes his knees tremble. Inside, everything is exactly as it was the day she left, the two armchairs facing each other with the little table between, her reading glasses still folded on the armrest, the adventure book open to the blank pages that always waited. Sunlight pours through the windows in slow golden bars, dust motes drifting like tiny helium dreams. Carl walks from room to room, trailing his fingers over wallpaper flowers she picked out in 1953 over the height marks on the kitchen doorframe that never got past the two of them. He whispers her name once, just once, so softly that even the house almost misses it. Then, knock, knock, knock. 3 small knocks on the door that shouldn't be possible 30,000 feet in the air. Carl freezes. Another knock, faster, and a muffled voice calling, "Mr. Fredrickson? Sir? Are you in there?" Carl's eyes widen behind the square glasses. He shuffles to the door, opens it a crack, and there, clinging to the porch railing like a round yellow koala, is Russell, cheeks puffed out from the thin air, backpack flapping, wilderness explorer sash fluttering like a flag of pure determination. "Hi, Mr. Fredrickson. I found your house. Can I come in now?" Carl stares, mouth opening and closing like a goldfish. Russell doesn't wait for an answer. He simply climbs over the railing and tumbles inside, landing with a soft thud on the rug Ellie chose, because it reminded her of clouds. Have you ever had someone show up exactly when you thought you wanted to be alone the most? Someone who didn't know they were answering a prayer you never dared to say out loud? Let that memory rise gently, like warm air under a balloon. Breathe it in, and let it make you smile, even if it's a tiny sleepy smile. Russell stands up, brushes off his knees, and immediately starts talking in his bright, unstoppable way. He explains that he was still under the porch hunting the snipe when the house lifted off, and he grabbed the garden hose just in time. He dangled there for miles until his arms got tired, and he climbed up the hose hand over hand like the rope in gym class. Carl listens in stunned silence while Russell explores every corner of the house with the delighted curiosity of an 8-year-old who has never been told some places are private. He touches the photographs, asks who the pretty lady is, tries to sit in Ellie's armchair and almost fits. Carl grumbles that this is not a sightseeing tour, and they are very busy going to South America, thank you very much, but Russell just beams and says, "Cool! I've never been to South America. Do they have capybaras there? My dad says they're like giant guinea pigs." Trivia whisper, soft as silk. The animators recorded hours of real 8-year-old boys talking so Russell's dialogue would feel perfectly unscripted. Jordan Nagai, the little boy who voiced him, was chosen because during his audition he kept wandering away from the microphone to look at toys, and the director realized that was exactly Russell. Night falls inside the floating house. The sky outside turns deep indigo, scattered with the brightest stars you've ever seen, so close you could almost touch them. Russell sets up his tent in the living room, the little orange dome looking ridiculous between the old armchairs, and he pumps it up with enthusiastic puffs that make Carl's cheeks hurt just watching. They eat dinner on TV trays, canned beans for Carl, a Wilderness Explorer ration bar for Russell that tastes, he announces, like sand and birthday cake had a baby. Carl tries to read his newspaper, but Russell keeps asking questions. "Do you think clouds taste like cotton candy? Why do you have so many balloons? Was the lady in the pictures your wife?" Carl answers in short, gruff sentences, but each time Russell says, "Oh," in that wondering voice, something tiny and warm cracks open inside the old man's chest. Later, Russell teaches Carl how to use the Wilderness Explorer call, cupping hands around his mouth and letting out a high, clear C-A-A-A, C-A-A-A-W, C-A-A-A, C-A-A-A-A-W that echoes strangely inside the house. Carl refuses at first, but Russell is relentless in the sweetest way, and finally Carl tries it, his old voice cracking on the second note. They both laugh, Carl's laugh rusty from disuse, Russell's bright as breaking dawn, and the sound bounces off the walls that haven't heard laughter in years. Have you ever laughed when you thought you'd forgotten how? Let that rusty sound settle in your throat now. Feel how good it is to remember. The next morning, they fly into a storm. Dark purple clouds roll toward them, like slow-motion tidal waves. Carl tries to steer around them, pulling on the garden hose rudder, but the storm is too big. Rain lashes the windows in sheets. Thunder growls low and gentle like a sleeping giant turning over. The house rocks and sways, balloons straining against their strings. Russell clings to the legs of the dining table, eyes wide, but instead of being scared, he whispers, "This is just like the movies." Carl tells him to hold on tight, voice steady, even though his own heart is racing. Lightning flashes, illuminating the living room in stark white for half a second, and in that flash Carl sees Ellie's armchair empty and waiting, and he understands suddenly that he is not alone anymore. They ride through the heart of the storm. Wind howls around the chimney. Rain taps a million soft fingers on the roof, and Russell starts singing the Wilderness Explorer anthem under his breath to keep himself brave. Carl finds himself humming along without realizing it. Slowly, impossibly, the storm begins to thin. The clouds part like theater curtains, and golden sunlight pours in again. The house emerges above the storm, balloons glistening with raindrops that look like scattered diamonds. Below them now is an endless sea of clouds, soft and glowing, stretching all the way to the horizon. Russell presses his face to the window and whispers, "We're on top of the world." Carl stands beside him, cane forgotten on the floor, and for the first time in years he feels something lighter than grief. He doesn't smile yet, but the corners of his mouth twitch in a way that might become one someday. The house drifts lower now, guided by Carl's careful tugging on the garden hose lines, descending through the last wisps of cloud until the ground appears, a vast tabletop of dark green jungle broken by silver ribbons of river, and one impossible ribbon of waterfall that glitters like a secret kept for 70 years. Paradise Falls. The real one. Exactly where Ellie drew it in crayon when she was 8, red X and all. Carl's breath catches so sharply you can almost hear the tiny click in his throat. The balloons shimmer in the humid air, each one catching the South American sun like stained glass. The house creaks softly, the way old bones do when they realize they are almost home. They drop lower still, skimming the treetops, leaves brushing the bottom of the porch with the gentlest shushing sound, like a librarian telling the world to be quiet because someone is finally falling asleep. Carl steers toward a flat plateau across from the falls, the exact spot in Ellie's drawing where the little house was meant to sit forever. But the wind shifts at the last moment, playful and cruel. The house overshoots, drifts past the plateau, and the balloon strings catch on a rocky spire. The house jerks to a stop with a long, tired groan, suspended halfway between sky and earth, tethered by thousands of strings like a kite that has flown too far. Carl steps out onto the porch, cane tapping the weathered boards, and looks down. The ground is 30 feet below, maybe 40, a carpet of moss and vines and tiny purple flowers. Russell bounces beside him, eyes shining behind his round glasses. "We're here! We made it! Paradise Falls!" Carl nods once, very slowly, and tells Russell they will have to walk the house the rest of the way, like walking a very large, very stubborn dog. He ties the garden hose around his waist, hands the other end to Russell, and together they step off the porch into thin air, trusting the balloons to hold them the way promises once held them. They float gently down, feet brushing leaves, the hose creaking softly with every step. The jungle smells thick and green, wet earth and orchids, and something sweet like overripe mango. Bird calls echo in layers, some close, some far away, all of them sounding like questions no one has answered yet. Russell keeps up a running commentary in his happy whisper, "Look, a toucan. Look, those flowers smell like candy. Do you think Kevin is real?" Carl grunts that there is no Kevin, only the falls, only the promise, but his voice is softer than it used to be. Trivia. Whispered against the sound of distant waterfall. The animators spent weeks in Venezuela studying tepuis, those tabletop mountains that look like islands in the sky, so every rock and vine you see is a love letter to a real place most people will never visit. And the mist from Paradise Falls? They recorded real waterfall spray and slowed it down so you can almost feel each droplet kissing your cheek. They walk for hours, or maybe days. Time feels syrupy here. The house floats behind them like a patient blue whale, creaking and swaying, balloons popping one by one in the heat. Pop, pop, soft as goodnight kisses going away. Russell's legs get tired, so Carl lets him ride on his back for a while, the boy's arms around his neck, warm breath against his ear saying, "You're the best wilderness explorer ever, Mr. Fredrickson." Carl pretends to complain, but his hands hold Russell's ankles very carefully. Then they hear it. A strange, musical honk from the bushes. Out steps the most beautiful bird any child ever drew in crayon. Tall as Russell, feathers every color of sunrise, long, elegant neck curved like a question mark. Russell gasps, "Kevin!" The bird tilts her head, curious, then snatches Russell's backpack in her beak and trots away. Russell runs after her, laughing, and Carl has no choice but to follow, grumbling but secretly delighted by the absurdity of it all. They chase Kevin through the jungle, over roots that feel like sleeping snakes under their feet, under curtains of hanging vines that brush their faces like cool silk. Kevin leads them to a giant labyrinth of rock shaped like a maze, glowing faintly orange in the late afternoon light. And there, waiting in the shadows, are dogs, dozens of them, wearing high-tech collars that let them speak perfect English in funny cartoon voices. Their leader, a sleek Doberman named Alpha with a voice pitched high and squeaky because of a broken collar, steps forward and says, well, the bird. The master will be so pleased." Carl and Russell back away slowly, but it's too late. The dogs surround them, tails wagging, eyes hungry. Have you ever realized halfway through an adventure that you accidentally collected an entire family you didn't know you were missing? A noisy boy, a chocolate-loving bird, soon a golden retriever who just wants to be loved? Let that warmth pool in your chest like sunlight through leaves. Breathe it in, hold it, let it stay. The dogs march them through the maze to a gigantic cave lit by lanterns and filled with treasures, old biplanes, maps, trophies, and at the far end, sitting in a velvet chair like a king gone slightly mad, Charles Muntz himself. Older now, white-haired, still tall and handsome in a broken way, eyes sharp with decades of obsession. He recognizes Carl's grape soda badge instantly. "Ellie," he whispers, voice cracking like thin ice. He offers them dinner, speaks softly at first, reminiscing about the old days, pouring wine with trembling hands. But when Kevin's feather falls from Russell's pocket, Muntz's face changes. The mask slips. He has spent 50 years hunting this bird to clear his name, to prove he wasn't a fraud. He will not let her go. The chase begins again, but this time it's terrifying. Dogs with fighter planes strapped to their backs swoop through the cave. Spotlights sweep the stone walls. Carl clutches the adventure book to his chest like a shield. Russell screams directions. Kevin runs on long, elegant legs. They escape into the night, hearts pounding. But now they know. Muntz will never stop. They hide under the house as it hangs from its remaining balloons, rocking gently like a cradle. Russell is quiet for once, sitting with his knees drawn up, voice small. He tells Carl about his dad, how he's always busy with his new girlfriend, how they used to go for ice cream every Sunday but don't anymore. "Phyllis says I'm a handful," he whispers. Carl looks at the boy's sad round face in the moonlight and feels something shift inside him. Like a house finally settling on its foundation. Without thinking, he reaches over and awkwardly pats Russell's shoulder. "You're not a handful," he says gruffly. "You're a big help." Russell's smile is small and perfect, and worth every popped balloon. Have you ever said the exact words someone needed to hear without planning them? Have you ever been surprised by how much love can fit inside a grumpy old heart? Let that moment replay softly behind your eyes, like an old film reel glowing warm. Dawn paints the tepuy rose and gold. They are so close now. The plateau is just across a narrow chasm. Carl can almost see the spot where the house is meant to sit forever, but the dogs are coming. Planes buzz overhead like angry metal bees. Muntz himself descends on a rope, eyes wild. There is no more time. The morning air is thick with mist, and the roar of paradise falls, so close now that every breath tastes of cool silver water. Carl stands on the porch in his tweed jacket, cane planted like a flag. The few remaining balloons above him straining and popping one by one, soft, sad kisses goodbye. Across the narrow chasm, the perfect plateau waits, flat and green and glowing, the exact place Ellie drew with red crayon 70 years ago. Charles Muntz lands on the porch with the grace of a much younger man, eyes bright, with madness and longing, the same eyes that once stared out from newsreels and made two children believe the world was full of heroes. He holds a rifle loosely, almost politely, and says in the gentlest, most broken voice, "I've waited a very long time for this bird, Carl. Give her to me, and you can still keep your promise to Ellie." Kevin is hidden beneath the house, long neck curled protectively around her 3 rainbow-colored babies that nobody knew existed until this morning. Russell stands beside Carl, small fists clenched, tears already shining on his round cheeks. Doug, the golden retriever who defected from Muntz's pack because I have just met you and I love you, presses against Russell's leg and growls low, collar translating every brave syllable. The other dogs circle in their little biplanes overhead, engines whining like disappointed bees. The house creaks and tilts, more balloons popping, the chimney leaning dangerously. Carl looks at Muntz, really looks, and sees not the hero from the newsreel, but a man who let obsession eat every gentle thing inside him until only hunger remained. Carl's own hunger has been different. He has clung to a promise so tightly that it became a cage. In this moment, with the waterfall singing and the sun warming his old bones, he finally understands what Ellie tried to tell him in the hospital bed all those years ago, when she pressed the adventure book into his hands and smiled through her tears. The adventure was never the destination. The adventure was the people you loved along the way. Have you ever realized, right in the middle of the hardest choice, that letting go is the only way to truly keep something forever? Let that realization settle over you now like the softest morning mist. Breathe in the waterfall air and feel the weight begin to lift. Carl makes his decision without words. He reaches into his pocket, pulls out a small leaf-wrapped bundle of chocolate Russell gave Kevin earlier, and tosses it high into the air. Kevin cannot resist. She bursts from beneath the house in a riot of color, leaping for the chocolate, babies chirping behind her. Muntz fires. Carl swings his cane like a tennis racket and knocks the rifle barrel aside. The bullet pings harmlessly off a rock. Chaos explodes. Doug leaps onto Alpha, fixing his broken collar mid-fight so the fierce Doberman suddenly speaks in a ridiculous chipmunk voice. The other dogs, confused and delighted, turn on their former packmates in playful aerial dogfights. Russell climbs the garden hose toward the house, screaming for Kevin. Carl runs, old legs pumping in a way they haven't since childhood, chasing the great bird across the floating porch as more and more balloons pop, the house sinking lower, lower. Muntz corners them inside the living room. He grabs Russell by the backpack straps and dangles him out the door over empty air. Carl's heart stops. Russell's terrified eyes meet his, and in that second Carl sees Ellie at 8 years old, fearless and trusting, pinning the grape soda badge on his shirt. He charges. Cane meets rifle. They struggle among the armchairs, knocking over lamps, shattering picture frames. Muntz snarls that Carl is just like all the others who laughed at him. Carl whispers, voice shaking but steady, "I'm not laughing, I'm living." With the last of his strength, Carl shoves Muntz backward. The villain's foot catches on one of the balloon strings. A single red balloon, the very last one still fully inflated, snaps free from the chimney and shoots upward, wrapping its string around Muntz's ankle. He is yanked out the door and into the sky, rifle falling, mouth open in one silent scream as he disappears into the clouds like a dark balloon carried away by its own bitterness. The house crashes gently onto the plateau at last, balloons deflated and drifting down like tired confetti. Kevin and her babies are safe. Doug sits proudly, tail thumping. Russell clings to Carl's neck, sobbing and laughing at the same time. Carl stands in the doorway of the little blue house, now perfectly placed beside Paradise Falls, exactly where it belongs, and he opens the adventure book with shaking hands. He turns to the section Ellie labeled, "Stuff I'm Going to Do." The pages are no longer blank. Russell has secretly filled them during the journey. Photographs of their adventures, ticket stubs from the Spirit of Adventure dirigible, a feather from Kevin, a paw print from Doug, and in the corner of every page, in Carl's own careful handwriting added just moments ago the words, "Thanks for the adventure. Now go have a new one. Love, Ellie." Trivia, soft as tears on cheeks, the filmmakers never animated Muntz hitting the ground. They said some falls should stay off screen, the way some losses in life are too heavy to watch directly. Carl closes the book gently, presses it to his heart, and for the first time in decades he cries openly, shoulders shaking, while Russell hugs him around the middle, and Doug licks the tears from his hand, and Kevin drapes one long, colorful wing across them all, like the warmest blanket in the world. Have you ever discovered that the thing you chased for years was never the thing you actually needed? Have you ever been held so completely that the broken pieces inside you finally felt allowed to heal? Let those tears come if they want to. They are only balloons, and tonight they are allowed to float away. The little blue house sits quietly now, exactly where it was always meant to be, right at the edge of Paradise Falls, where the mist rises every morning like soft applause, and the sun paints the balloons, faded ribbons and gentle pastels one last time before they drift down and become part of the earth again. Carl kept the promise, but in a way Ellie surely smiles at from wherever bright spirits go. The house is there, yes, yet Carl himself is no longer inside it all day every day. Some mornings the porch swing moves by itself in the breeze, creaking the same rhythm it learned when two young sweethearts sat there shaping clouds, and if you were a curious bird flying past you might see an old man and a round-faced boy in a yellow sash sitting side by side, sharing ice cream cones that drip onto their fingers while a golden retriever begs shamelessly and a very tall, very colorful bird balances on the railing hoping someone will toss her a piece of chocolate. Back in the city, life has found its new gentle rhythm. Every other Sunday, Carl's living room fills with the happy noise of wilderness explorers earning their assisting the elderly badges. Though these days the badge ceremony looks suspiciously like root beer floats and Doug teaching the new puppies how to shake hands. Russell's dad still misses most of them, but Carl is always there in the front row when Russell is promoted to senior wilderness explorer, clapping with hands that no longer tremble quite so much, wearing the same grape soda pin now polished bright again. At the ceremony, Russell pins a brand new badge onto Carl's jacket, a tiny house with balloons lifting it toward a waterfall, and underneath, in careful 8-year-old printing, the words, "Best Adventure Buddy." Trivia, the last one I'll whisper tonight. When the credits roll, if you stay in your seat until the very end, past the beautiful dedication for the real-life Carls and Ellies, you will see 2 final still images. The first is Carl's house peacefully beside the falls, balloons gone, chimney sending up a lazy curl of smoke. The second is the adventure book open on a table, and on the very last page, where Ellie once wrote, "Stuff I'm going to do," there is now a photograph of Carl and Russell counting birds at the zoo, both of them grinning exactly the same shy sideways grin. Underneath the picture, in grown-up handwriting that is unmistakably Carl's, are the words, "Thanks, kid. It was a good one." Have you ever noticed that some stories end not with a period, but with an open window? A story that says the adventure keeps going even after the screen fades to black, even after the lights come up, even after you close your eyes tonight? That is what Up gives us. Permission to start a new page whenever we are brave enough. So let me ask you, just once more, in the softest whisper that brushes your ear like the last balloon ribbon settling on grass, what promise have you been carrying that might be ready to change shape? What empty chair in your heart could become a seat for someone new who is waiting on your porch right now, knocking politely, holding a backpack full of noisy love and chocolate for strange birds? You don't have to answer aloud. Just let the question rest inside you like a tiny helium seed. Feel the mist from Paradise Falls drifting across your pillow now, cool and sweet, carrying away every leftover worry of the day. Hear the gentle creak of the porch swing, the distant call of Kevin's babies learning to fly, Doug's tail thumping happily against wooden boards. Let the colors of 10,000 balloons fade into the softer colors of sleep, rose, lavender, the tender blue of an old house that finally learned how to let people in, instead of only flying away. Carl is counting backwards now, the way he does for Russell when nerves get too big. 10, 9, 8 balloons left to pop. 7, 6, 5 goodnight kisses from a golden dog. 4, 3 pages turning themselves, 2 heartbeats slowing. 1 last soft sigh that says, "Thank you, Ellie. Thank you, Russell. Thank you, life." And 0. Nothing left to hold on to. Nothing left to prove. Just the wide, open, trusting dark that knows exactly how to catch you. You did it. You flew all the way here with us. The house is settled. The promise is kept. The new adventure begins tomorrow, but tonight you are allowed to be weightless. Shh. Listen. Can you hear it? Somewhere very far away, and very close inside your chest at the same time, a little boy and an old man are laughing together on a porch swing, and the sound is the gentlest lullaby ever made. Sleep now, my sweet friend. The balloons will still be there when you wake up, only this time they will be inside you, bright and quiet and ready. Good night. Adventure is out there. But so is peace. Right here, under this blanket, inside this breath. Good night.